Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another fantastic episode of This Uncanny Earth. We are here at the Flatwoods Monster Museum with the one, the only Andrew Smith. We've had him before, but not in video form. But today, advanced technology allows us to bring him to your living room. How you doing today, Andrew?
Doing great. How about you?
Great. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about this wonderful place.
Okay. Well, my name is Andrew Smith. I run the Flatwoods Monster Museum located in downtown Sutton, just blocks away from the Haunted Heyman House and then another block away from the West Virginia Bigfoot Museum. We've been here since 2018 or so. And in that amount of time, we've, I want to say we've entertained a lot of Flatwoods Monster fans, but that's not the right word. But
maybe aficionados.
We've been here for the Flatwoods Monster loving community ever since then.
And we have been here before. I've been here. I remember way back when this was up in the Flatwoods Plaza or whatever you call that up there.
Yeah.
This used to be a candy store, I believe.
Like this actual building that we're in? No, this was a pharmacy and a general store. Going back to 1910. I'm sure they had candy. But from what I hear, they had a little bit of everything. As a matter of fact, there was just a guy in here today who's an older gentleman that is originally from this area. He doesn't live here now. And he was talking, it was called Elliot's at the time, Elliot's Drug or something like that. And but he said, they sold guitars here. They sold all sorts of stuff. But it was primarily a drugstore up until the 90s.
So when did you take this building over officially?
Well, we bought the building in October 2018, or maybe it was September, but it took us a couple weeks to really to sort of clean up everything, sort of get everything into good shape, and then to move all of our stuff. Because you're right, we were maybe the first time you would have came through the Braxton County Convention and Visitors Bureau, the actual organization that I work for, was up at the Flatwoods Mall, and we needed a new place to have our offices. So we came here, and as a part of finding this great, new location with all this room that, in all honesty, we really didn't need. That's where the idea of a Flatwoods Monster Museum came from, and it quickly turned into, the reason why easily 98% of the people that ever walk through the door. So it ended up being a good decision.
Now, my family is from the area,
mm-hmm.
and I have known about the Flatwoods Monster for maybe 15, 20 years now,
mm-hmm.
going on. And this wasn't here at first, but I remember when I saw this here, I was like, wow, I gotta go in there. And then I heard about you, and I forget how we started to talk.
Was it maybe because, well, you were coming to, you all got involved one way or another with bonus round.
Yep, we got involved with bonus round.
So probably just, my guess, probably Facebook.
Had to have been. It had to be some form of social media, because I met you, Corey Lake, Wesley Carpenter, whose family owns the El Costal next door. And I've been there, I've been here, and it's been a crazy ride to meet all of you. And it's so crazy because, when you sit and think about it, my grandfather moved, I want to say late 60s, like 68 maybe, from here or over in Gasaway
mm-hmm.
to Cleveland area, because he started working for the automotive plants, because that was a real big thing in Ohio back then before they all shut down.
Yeah.
And I remember growing up not hearing too much about the Flatwoods Monster Museum, or the Flatwoods Monster, I should say. And then one day it just came up in a conversation, and I was like, what? And I was told the whole process, the whole thing, Braxy and the May family. And it just fascinated me.
Yeah.
I read as much as I could back then, before the internet had really blown up to the proportion that is now, where you can find YouTube videos, you can find, anything you want about the Flatwoods Monster, you can pretty much find on the internet and shoot them down. I read that. it was just a lot of very interesting information. And then from there, I remember contacting you, and then we were going to meet here, and you were in a parade dressed as a Flatwoods Monster.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I think I had met your wife.
Okay.
And I said, I'm looking for
whenever I'm in the suit, she's my handler.
Yes. I said, where can I find him? He's like, well, he's in the suit. So I said, oh, okay. Because I remember it was hot that day.
Yeah.
It was hot that day, and they had you guys walking down the street over there in Flatwoods, right by the elementary school. And then we met a bonus round where you did like a panel with you, Wesley Carpenter, Les Odell, Sherry Brake. I don't think George Dudding was there, or if he was there, I had missed him.
No, I don't think Dudding was there that year.
Somebody was supposed to be there that I missed. I forget who it was, but I remember we have had every single person who was at that panel on our show because of that. And really, I have to thank all of you, because without all of you, we wouldn't be where we are today, because that kind of opened the door for us.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's good.
That opened the door for us to come down here. And this is one of my first loves. I love being down here.
Oh, cool.
There's something about coming down here that it's just very cathartic for me. It's being around my family, the people that lived and died to create me.
Right.
And I've been doing like my ancestry stuff, and
cool.
My family tree is pretty deep here. Like the roots here are pretty deep. So every time I come down here, it doesn't feel foreign to me. Like, I've been all over the United States. I've been to Boston. I've been to Hawaii. I've been to Florida. I've been to Georgia. And, when you're at those places, you're on a vacation. You're like, this isn't, it doesn't feel like home. It just feels like I'm staying here. I'm going to have some fun. I'm going to go back home, create some memories here. But here, it feels like I could live here. Like I would genuinely be happy living here, because I love the mountains. I love I love how you can drive an hour, be in like a really nice secluded area, and then 15 minutes later you're in a city. Yeah. And the cities are densely packed. Like I've been to Charleston. Yeah. I've been to Parkersburg. I've been to Morgantown, Clarksburg, and they remind me a lot of Akron. I don't know if you've ever been to Akron, but Akron is like that. It's more of a compact city, and here it's just like that, because you guys can't really build much outward.
Not really.
And just start ripping down mountains and things like that. So how long have you been in the area?
Well, in central West Virginia, I've lived here my whole life. I've lived in West Virginia my whole life. And then the only time I didn't live in central West Virginia was while I was going to college. I went to school at Fairmont State, but that's just like an hour and a half drive north of here. So not far at all. Yeah,
that's not too far from Morgantown.
Right. Yeah.
Because I've been to Fairmont too.
Yeah, a little bit south of Morgantown. Yeah. So it's basically straight shot, jump on I-79, go up, and then get off. Yeah. So I'm in West Virginia my whole life. I lived in Braxton County, more or less since I was in 6th grade.
Okay. Yeah. And how do you like it compared to other places you've been? What is the magic about not just this area, but West Virginia as a whole? Okay. As opposed to going out of state to another place? Like what is it that keeps you here?
Boy, that's tough. I don't know that I've ever been asked that explicitly, but I would say, it's where I'm from. So it's what I know the most. There's even parts of West Virginia that will kind of make me uncomfortable because of how different they are from here. Yes. So like you're talking about Morgantown. I find being in Morgantown to be, for the most part, highly stressful, especially like driving through downtown Morgantown when school's in session. Yes. I mean, you can't, I went to a conference a couple years back that was being held in downtown Morgantown, and the place where it was being held, the hotel, it was kind of too expensive. So I didn't want to, even though my organization would be paying the bill, I was trying to save us some money. So I thought, well, I found this other hotel that's like 3 times cheaper. And it's like 3 miles away. So I'll do that. But anytime I made the mistake of driving back and forth, which at the beginning of the day, the end of the day, I had to, it just ate up any amount of time I thought I was saving, any amount of money I thought I was saving was completely ate up by doing it. So just Morgantown itself was too different for me. So, so I like Central West Virginia. I've lived in Central West Virginia my whole life. I was born in Calhoun County, which is a neighboring county. But what makes it, for me, what makes it perfect, like for me and my family, is the small town feel. It has that. The driving's easy. Although from what I hear, like if you're someone that's used to like driving in like grid towns, that like our back roads are scary because like everyone's going 55 miles an hour around breakneck curves, but that feels normal to me. But anyhow, but what makes Central West Virginia so great is like, this is like when you're in Central West Virginia, it's like quintessentially West Virginian as well. So I love that feel and like culturally. And also like, every day during the summer, if it's hot, we go swimming, so we got great swimming holes and fishing holes and things like that in the area. So, I mean, as far as what you need, you have everything you need. You might not have everything you want, but you can order that. So not that big a deal. So I just love it. Coming to work takes me 10 minutes. Going home takes me 10 minutes. Just everything.
We have people outside, as you guys can see. The door here. There's a door. We are in the back part of the museum. I
got distracted. I could have swore I heard my daughter, but that can't be her because that's not my wife. But
be some explaining.
Yeah. Anyway, but I don't know. It's just really not like any other place. But again, I might be speaking from ignorance because I don't really know that I know any other place. This is really all that I know, but I love it. Some people grow up in an area like this and the first thing they want to do is leave it, which I get, but that's the last thing that I want to do. So, I just absolutely love it. It's really hard to pinpoint why. My wife will ask me sometimes, like, "Why do you tell me why you love me?" It's like, I don't know. I can't tell you. I just do. So I don't know. So I talked a lot, but I don't think I answered your question.
No, and really, you answered it just fine because me personally, I know that feeling of coming down here. Mm-hmm. Now I have to highly disagree with the back roads thing because that is scary. Yeah. Okay. Because being in Ohio, we don't have those kind of roads. Really? You might have one like every so often, but for the most part, because Ohio is flatlands, right? So they could pretty much shape the roads they want the way they want to. Here, I remember coming down, I think it was 2008, 2018, 2019. Yeah. And I was coming down here, or no, 2018. I came down before. And I remember going back roads. That was a mistake. Instead of taking 77 to 50 to 79 to 67, exit 67, I decided to take 77 all the way into this weird back road that they told me to take on the GPS. Mm-hmm. That was a mistake because I'm winding, and they had taken chunks out of the road because they were fixing the road, but they did not bother to close off. That was a surprise.
Yeah, they do that here. I don't know if that's normal everywhere.
It is not.
But like, say, once a part of the road will develop an issue, they must have some machine that does it, but it comes through and chews a square out of the road. Yes. And you have to be really because if you hit those, they are hard on you. It's hard on your car.
The alignment's probably done after hitting one of those.
Yeah, there's a joke that I see sometimes on the internet that's like, in West Virginia or like anywhere else, swerving in the road will get you pulled over as being suspected of being drunk. In West Virginia, not swerving around on the roads will get you pulled over for suspected of being drunk because there's stuff you need to miss. Yeah, and if it's not a limb, it's a hole. If it's not a hole, it's a dead skunk. Yes. You gotta get around them things. And if there's nobody in that lane, your left lane, that's fair game. Yeah, you go all the way over and then do it all the time.
And that's what did. I remember the way it took us. It took me to Glenville. It took me to Glenville. Yeah. Where the Walgreens used to be. It's not there anymore. It's an empty building now. Okay. Went by Tudor's Biscuit World, which I never had before until like last year when I came down here. Let me tell you, I absolutely love Tudor's Biscuit World. And like everybody was telling me, you come down, you got to go to Tudor's. You got to go to Tudor's. You got to go to Tudor's.
It's my favorite.
I did. And I will probably go again tomorrow because of how delicious it is. But I remember coming that way. And while, yes, it is very harrowing because I'll get people that'll come behind me and they're right on my tail. And I'm like, listen, I am terrified. I'm not finna go 60 miles per hour around these curves. You're going to get me at a good 35. You're going to get me and they'll pass me. And they probably see the Ohio plate and think, okay, he's not from here. But I remember
I get passed on those same roads.
And you live here.
I live here, yeah.
But it's such a beautiful thing to see because you'll be driving, and I remember it was forest. All of a sudden, there's a town, and there'll be a church here, and there'll be one of the old style schoolhouses that they don't use anymore because it's costly to heat. That's why they keep it all one floor now.
Right.
Because I went to one of those as a kid, and it's just something. It's almost like when I come down here, it's like a piece of time has frozen.
Yeah.
Solid. Like
if it wasn't for cable and the internet, you wouldn't know.
No, you wouldn't.
Because that's kind of how I describe growing up here. Like whenever I grew up in Calhoun County, which is just one county up. And before cable TV came through, it might as well have been the 70s. But it was the late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
But like I said, you wouldn't know it. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot here that somehow has been preserved from the wreckage of time that most things have not withstood.
Because I grew up in when I was about 10 years old, we moved to a place called Clinton in Ohio. It's in Summit County.
Okay.
Summit County is a big county. We have Akron, Cuyahoga Falls. You have all these cities, but it's on the outskirts between Stark and Summit, Stark being where Canton is.
Yeah. And
this town was a booming, the whole area I currently live in is a coal mining area. So like they had a rowdy coal mining town back in 1800s. And you could go there, you could still go to some parts today, but they tore it all down. But it's a shell of what it was because that's not it anymore. That's not the thing. The railroads, it was a big railroad town. And if you go like 5 minutes from where I live, you will see a couple of the canals. You see the areas where they would move the boats over to let other boats go through, and they would switch water lanes. It's deserted. The Summit County, it's like the trail works. They built up this nice trail on it, and it's frozen in time, but it's something that will never be again because now there's airplanes. Now we have cars. Right. Now we have trains. And so what's interesting to me is you come down here and I don't feel like there's any of those. I come down here, I'm like, I don't feel like there's any cars, even though there's a lot of cars. Yeah. I don't feel like there is really any future looking aspects. Now, if you go into Flatwoods, obviously you have the Walmart. Right. Which is futuristic, I guess, in terms of
contemporary.
Yes.
At least.
In terms of like your old school general stores, like, one would have it. We had a place like this in Manchester, which is about 10, 15 minutes from me. Looked just like this museum, and it was working for a long time. I think they just closed maybe 5-10 years ago, and they had a soda jerk. They had the soda fountain, they had everything. You could go in there and get malts still, and I would go in there every now and again to pick it. It was a pharmacy, but it's also like a little stand. We go get hot dogs, and you could, get a sundae or get a fountain drink, whatever. And that was such a cool slice of history because you don't have that anymore. You don't have the little slice of life, little heavenly things that weren't even part of my time. Growing up in the 90s, we didn't really have that. No. But I always liked that. And like when I come down here, I just feel that it feels like home. Like at some point in my life, I will make that move down here because I love it down here. The only thing I don't like is the heat. The heat is obnoxious in a roundabout way.
Is it worse than in Ohio?
Way worse because you're in a valley. Right. Your air doesn't move like ours does. Right. Even on our hottest day, you get maybe you'll get like a strong breath of air on your face. And you're like, okay, it's not that bad. But here, the air doesn't move. Yeah. It's muggy. It's muggy. Yeah. You literally go outside and sweat.
That's why you go find the nearest lake and jump in it and swim.
We would get pontoon boats when my grandfather was still alive. Oh. We'd rent pontoon boats up there at B Run. Yeah. Take the pontoon boat, and then you just stop the boat and just jump out and swim. Oh, yeah. I love swimming in that lake. Yeah. It is the best, when it's hot, because there's days it's just sweltering. Yep. It's hard to catch your breath because it's so freaking humid. Yeah. But jumping in that water and just feeling that cool water, you're like, this is why I came down here. Yeah. and it's beautiful. It is it's probably the most beautiful state I've ever been in, bar none. And I've been to Hawaii.
Yeah.
So this to me is it's heaven. It's a beautiful place. You come down here, you feel like you feel like a person who's traveling in time back to the past.
Yeah.
And that's really what sells it for me is the idea of a small town. Because I grew up in sort of a larger town, and we moved to a small town. And while you get the small town gossip a lot more, because I've lived in Akron. I lived in Akron after I graduated college. Lived there for some time, and I liked it. We lived at the end of a city street, and it was nice. It was a little area. The only thing I had to worry about was solicitors. You know, they would come knocking on the door, trying to sell whatever, but it was peaceful.
Yeah.
It was a weird, peaceful, and we lived right next to the expressway at the time.
Okay.
So that was nice. Like I would go to sleep at night hearing the cars and stuff like that. And here it's a little bit different. When you go to sleep at night, you just hear nothing.
Well, I know that you said you were coming to West Virginia for a few days. What else brought you here?
Well, I actually am interviewing Teresa over at the Heyman on Sunday.
Okay.
Which I'm looking forward to doing because I have been there once before with Les Odell.
So what are you doing in the days between here and then and now?
I'm just going to go explore.
Oh,
I'm going to go eat and explore.
Okay.
Because I work a couple days out of the week, and I just want to go out and see some things and eat some good food and do some stuff and just kind of get lost for a few days, but not actually get lost. Right. It's easy to do that. You can take the wrong turn and end up on a back road and be like, well, I don't know how to get back to the highway. Yeah,
Google Maps thinks that a lot of basically game trails are roads, and it will have you to drive on them, and you really want to. I always tell folks, like, if you're already on like a 2-lane road and your GPS tells you like take a left, and like it's like take left now, and you stop and you look and you can kind of tell where you could go, but you're the gut feeling that's telling you not to go, listen to it. And I say, I guarantee you, Google thinks that there's a shortcut right there that's actually more or less a straight up on a mountain. And unless your car's jacked up, you might tear out your oil pan. Like, just keep driving straight, and you'll get to like the real intersection that you're supposed to take.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. I always tell people, if you're driving in West Virginia and your gut tells you not to take the turn the GPS says to take, just go ahead and don't take it.
Yeah. And that's the GPS. Because before I used the GPS, so I'd be like 2 or 3 times, but then now I can just take 77 to 50, 50 to 79. Now 50 was built relatively recently.
Oh, okay.
Before we would take 79 or 77 into Charleston, hit Charleston, and then have to go turn around and go back up. Yeah. My grandfather lived in Dunbar for a while too, so I've been to Dunbar. I have been all over the central aspect of West Virginia. The couple places I like to hit next are Green Bank, the Greenbrier, and Point Pleasant, because I've never been to those 3 places.
You haven't been to Point Pleasant
Never.
yet?
Never.
Oh, you got to.
And I'd love to go to the Mothman Festival, but I heard that it's exploded in popularity over the last couple of years.
Well, last year I know that they had a record number of something like around 20,000 visitors, and where they put them all in the town of Point Pleasant, I have no idea. But from what I heard, even though it was like shoulder to shoulder, everybody was nice, and everybody's considerate and that sort of thing. I think it seems like only nice people get into this kind of stuff. That's been my experience.
I haven't had we now, I will say this, in podcasting as a whole, it's slightly different because we've had our fair share of run-ins. I wouldn't even say run-ins. I would say people that they don't care much for what we do. And they'll blast us on air, but I will never say another person's name. I will not. I'm not a disrespectful person. If you give me a chance and you don't like us at the end of the day, that's on you. That's not on me. I will never do that because that's unprofessional. And I'm not going to give anybody any promotion that doesn't deserve it. I like promoting people that I feel bring value to the community, such as yourself.
Oh, okay.
This is the kind of stuff I wish I would have known about as a kid.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I don't think places like this existed when we were kids.
They do not.
I think that's a relatively new phenomena. Now, I don't know how long the international cryptozoology museum has existed in Maine, but I have to imagine that or the Mothman Museum has to be one of the first in that vein, at least maybe,
I mean,
east of Roswell.
Outside of like haunted houses, famous haunted houses, and probably like the Winchester Mystery House was probably another one that was probably a real big name, which I want to go see one day. That's another one on my list. And I think a lot of your more like Crybaby Bridges, everybody has one.
Right.
We've got one. I have one 10 minutes from the house, and we've gone out there at night, but a cop lives there. So I try not to push my luck because I told him, I go, we just come out here all the time. He's like, I bet you were one of those kids that would vandalize. I'm like, I never did any such thing. That's not the type of person I am. You can go there now. It's Rogues Hollow Park in Doylestown, Ohio. It's a very nice area. That's the first place me and my co-host, who's not here, we saw stacked rocks. And when I say stacked rocks, I know you can make them. I've seen people make them, but they had to be at least 4 to 5 foot high. And they were in a weird way. And I remember we walked to the end of the trail we were on, and we felt like something was watching us. It felt weird. And it looks packed. The forest looks crazy huge when you're in it, but as soon as wintertime comes around, it's bare. It doesn't look like anything. You're like, where could something have been watching us from? But it was that weird gut feeling of you're being watched, and it's not something that's a good thing. So maybe it was an animal, because I'm somewhat of a skeptic. I like to rule out everything that it could be before I start going into, okay, maybe it's something else. And so that place was very different. It has very different feelings. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Sure.
But you go to certain places. We've been to Mansfield Reformatory. I was at the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum back in 2018. That was a weird place. That's a definitely, I don't know if you've ever been.
I've been, but I don't know if it just takes the right kind of person, or if it's maybe the instance is the wrong kind of person. I don't know, but I went to it. I took their their long tour.
Same.
And I remember at one point in the tour they packed us all into this one room and like shut the door behind us, and I instantly thought like they haven't done that yet. Like, so somehow or another, this is to prove some kind of point, but I wonder what it is because I don't know. So I stood there for a while, and then finally the lady started telling the story, and it was the room where the guy got killed for snoring.
Put the bed thing on his head, and we're jumping on it.
His head. Yeah,
that was the room. That was the room I felt off it.
Well, I felt absolutely nothing. I felt like I was in a very small, like this won't make any sense, but like a very small school cafeteria.
I know, I get it.
But like nothing. Like you could have unfolded one of those tables that had the bench seats and gave me a tray.
Little chocolate milk.
Yeah, the chocolate milk. And I'd have been like, yeah, this seems right. It seems normal.
I felt it. But something just felt off with the room. Like it
really.
I've had that happen at 2 places there and the Mansfield Reformatory and the chapel upstairs, because the chapel is one of the top points. But I've chalked that one up to maybe just because of the elevation and the quality of air, obviously, because there's not anything to clean that. So it's older. And with the Trans-Allegheny, I don't know, man, it felt weird. But I'm of a firm mind that, and you go to these places that have these sometimes horrific events happen, it leaves something behind. I equate it to people that go to the areas of Auschwitz or Dachau, and they're there and they feel that sort of misery.
Yeah.
And I feel it's the same basic concept. For there's just a level of energy that just sits.
Yeah. And that's very possible. I do kind of feel like, though, that I'm not tuned to the frequency that can pick it up, because I've never been anywhere I've always felt at peace anywhere. But yeah, I know what you're saying. And there were people in the room that were obviously reacting.
Yeah.
Even before that we were told what was going on. But I was just waiting for my lunch tray.
Waiting for your chocolate milk.
Yeah.
Waiting for the chocolate milk. Maybe those little orange icy things that had the Chili Willy on the front of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, a lot of times you could always be psyched out because you're already going into a place knowing that there's bad energy there, or you can go into a place where bad things have happened.
You want to know something? You want to hear? I think it's a relatively fun, maybe entertaining story that happened to me at Heyman House. So a little precursor to that episode. So when it comes to specifically the paranormal ghosts, that sort of thing, I have a very healthy skepticism of that myself. However, there is part of me that worries, because I also am a fairly devout Christian, going back about 12 years was when I converted. And I'll be honest, I don't know if I should or not or whatever, but I do sometimes worry that people are meddling in business that they shouldn't be meddling in. And even though the only reason why I was going was to just have a good time.
Of course.
And I took my stepdaughter and her friend, they both wanted to go. But it's funny, like, just to be on the safe side, before we got out of the car, like as we were parking the car, I said a little prayer to myself. That was like, dear Lord, just in case anything funky happens in there, or any of the people that are involved in what's going on tonight, are doing anything that maybe they shouldn't be doing, or messing in things they shouldn't be messing with. Like, please, dear Lord, keep that off of me, keep that off of my daughter, keep it off her friend, and just keep us clean in this, just in case.
Yeah, always. I do that too.
Right?
Yeah.
So we go in, and there's a guy, I'd never met him before, who was there as like a guest of the owners. And I'm not sure if he was just there or if he was like there to specifically do like readings and that sort of stuff. But like, just seemed like kind of like just for fun and for free, he offered to do like an impromptu with us three, like individual readings for each one of us, having not spoken to us or anything like that. So he starts talking to and about my daughter's friend, and starts like describing her, and like kind of describing kind of like maybe some, I mean, not in super specifics. He's not saying anybody's name,
right?
But is describing kind of like her life, what kind of upbringing she's had, in a specific enough way that it would, if it was a guess, it was good. I mean, real good. I wouldn't have guessed it if I wouldn't have known her. And he's more or less kind of hitting the nail on the head. And then he comes to my daughter and does the same thing. And keep in mind, as far as I know, neither one of them has ever made a profession of faith in any sort of way, so what that means exactly, I don't know. I mean, I'm no biblical scholar or anything like that. But in any case, so then he talked about my daughter and said a lot of things about her that made a lot of sense. Well, and I was a perfectly willing participant, keep in mind. So I was just standing there and listening to it, and it was fascinating. And he gets to me, and he sits and looks at me for a while, like for probably what felt like a really long time, but was probably maybe only like 40 seconds. But that's a long time if it's in dead silence.
And they're staring at you.
Yeah, if you and I just sat here for 40 seconds, your listeners would get bored real quick. But he just looks at me for a long time, and he said, I got absolutely nothing. So I don't know a thing about you. And I was like, that's interesting. But part of me, which again, nothing that if I ever say anything out loud, it's just because that's what I think or what makes sense to me. It's not necessarily what the truth is or whatever. But part of me was thinking, like, what if that prayer, what if that blocked? I don't know.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how those things work. It's like, I do the same thing, just in case, because you don't know who's been goofing around doing the goofball things,
Yeah.
Because,
and I'm not informed enough to know what the goofball things are.
Same. All I know is like, because you don't know who's been in there, and maybe they are a worshiper of a different thing.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's something there that sits that we don't know about. And because I think there's, it talks of in the Bible of there being things that man can't see, and there's a reason we can't see those things. And maybe some people can. Maybe they have broken through that veil in a way.
Yeah,
they've done something to do that. And I think, and I don't necessarily equate that with myself being able to feel things. I think that's just something that you have, because it's almost like a gut instinct.
Right.
And it's kind of heightened, like your senses are heightened.
I can see that.
I was over next door at the Elk on a proverbial ghost hunt with me and Wes and Leah and Chloe, and and Wes and all them. And I remember being upstairs on the, I want to say 3rd floor, and I saw this black orb. I happened to look over, and I saw this black orb just move from one point of the pillar to where the pool table is. And I just, and I knew it was, because if you've ever been in a room with candles, while everything is still dark, you can still see the outlining of things.
Yeah.
This orb moved, and it was just pure black. It was pure black. And I wasn't afraid. It wasn't like I was like, oh, it's a demon, this, that, and the third. But I was just like, that's interesting. You know, that it's fascinating because I think that not everything is a demon. You know, I do think that a couple of different things, your brain can play tricks on you. If you ever turn off the lights in pitch black, you can't see your hand in front of your face, your brain will produce images. Yeah. Because it has to, because it's your brain. Sounds, it's like when people are blind or they're deaf, the other senses heighten. Right. And I think sometimes that happens. I also think sometimes people play around with things they shouldn't. Yeah. They get involved into forms of witchcraft, or they get involved in forms of Satanism, and they're playing with entities that they have no idea about. Yeah. You know,
that's one of the things that freaks me out about whenever I think about drug use, I often wonder how much of, you know, if you're using drugs, you know, how much of, you know, if it's altering your perception, if those things could possibly be not necessarily opening up gateways, but maybe changing, you know, how you just said things that humans can't see, things that man can't see. I wonder if those have the potential to unlock that and make it to where now all of a sudden you can see and hear things you're not supposed to be able to see and hear. And like the amount of worry that gives me for people. See, because what's funny, so I work to promote everything good about Braxton County. Right. My wife kind of does the exact opposite job. She works in the prosecuting attorney's office. So all she ever deals with is like the worst of Braxton County. Yeah. Basically, like in the way she describes it, it's basically like the same 150 people she always has to fool with. Like we have a county of 15,000 people. Is it 15,000? I want to say it's 15,000.
It's a fairly large county. I will say that.
Yeah. No, a large landmass. Yeah. But as far as how big it is, but yeah, she's always messing with the same 100 or so people. I mean, but so to her, it'll feel like it's a whole lot. But in any case, you know, a lot of what she deals with is in one way or another drug related. Yeah, of course. Either directly, or it causes a thing that then causes a thing that's now a problem. Yeah. You know, that's a thing my wife and I talk about a lot is we're like, you know, what if these people, you know, doing these hard drugs are somehow even unbeknownst to them are inviting a malevolence into their life that makes it to where even, because I got daughters too, you know, like I mentioned, the one I was talking about earlier, I got a 7-year-old now. And, you know, that something can hold that much of a grip on you to where, you know, you abandon your children, basically. Like, how powerful does that have to be? Yeah. And if it's that powerful, what's that powerful? You know what I mean? Exactly. So that's something but if the root problem really is drugs, and then you also have this powerful force in your life that you can't control, and I don't know much that's more powerful than the love that I have for my children. Facts. And if it's bigger than that, like, it's pretty powerful. And I don't know much that's more powerful than that, other than maybe the power of God, which isn't going to be behind that. So what's the next one? Right. So, but I don't know.
And I agree. Like, I have a 7-year-old too. Oh, I have a 7-year-old.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And I love him more than anything.
Yeah.
Like, that is like, it's to a point where it's like, you know, I want to make sure you're good. Even if I'm not good, as long as you're set, I'm good. Yeah. Like, I've lived a pretty good life. I like to think that I've done a lot of things that not a lot of people have got to do. Mm-hmm. And if he can take what I'm doing, learn from it, and if he wants to do what I do, if he wants to do this, he's talked about being on the show with me before.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, you come on, you know.
Yeah.
But like you said, if something, because there's nothing that would take that love away between me and him. Like, we're best buddies. There's nothing. When you get to a point, when you're young, you make reckless decisions. I've made a few reckless decisions in my life. I was young too.
Yeah.
But when he came into the picture, I couldn't live reckless no more.
Sure.
I wasn't living reckless before. Let me just state that for the record.
But if there was something.
Yeah. And there's nothing that would tear me away from him. So like you said, what is that power that is doing that? Now, I also want to say too that, Genesis 1:26, one of my favorite verses, talks of God making man in his image, in his likeness, in his being. And I have to wonder sometimes if maybe it's some of that. It's some of God's wisdom, imparting it to man in terms of, okay, you got to be careful of this place. So I'm going to show you a little bit of what this place is so you can make an informed decision on if this is a place you think you should be in the first place. And I think a lot of it's that, because it's not something to where I'm going to start consulting, spirit mediums and guides and whatever, they do their thing. But it's like, if I get a weird feeling about a place, bad or good, because I've been in places where I'm like, yeah, you can tell something happened here. And I've also been to places that are just extreme joy, like the land feels good. And that's the thing about West Virginia as a whole. They say the land's cursed. They say the Indians in parts of West Virginia would hunt and leave.
Right.
They said, we can't stay here. We're not going to stay here. Our fathers fought giants, or they fought something else that was here. They killed them. They cursed them. They cursed the land. And you have to wonder how much of that's true.
Yeah.
Being that, the Native Americans were here before us, but then there was a race of people here before them. And this has been documented where the Native Americans fought red-headed giants.
Okay.
And you start thinking, how many times has this happened? How many times have we flipped, to go from one civilization to the next?
Yeah, sure.
Like anything antediluvian.
Yeah, if there's not documentation of it, you can't know it.
Pre-flood, we have bits and pieces of pre-flood knowledge. We have Noah. We have a couple other civilizations. The funny thing I always have to ask myself is, in the Bible talks of Noah being one of the few people that God saved. But then you have so many other people that have flood myths. You have different religions outside of, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, the main three.
Right.
Outside of them in other regions of the world. So is this something that
truly was worldwide?
That was truly worldwide? Was it in parts and pieces? Like, here's a flood here, here's a flood here. But the fact that so many people had a flood myth leads me to believe it's far from a myth, that it's actual fact. Right. And there's, to me, and take this for a grain of salt, but I think we get so high in our civilization and then we fall like Rome did.
Yeah.
But I think it's on a catastrophic level. I think something happens.
Yeah.
Wipes out the entire civilization, and then everything starts fresh again. Because,
Right.
like you said, if there's no documentation to prove it,
right,
how do you know what happened?
And then what if Babel just isn't a myth? If that was a historical record, all that. Yeah.
Especially when you look and
because we have a tendency to get too big for our britches.
We do. I mean, look at us. Look at us now.
Yeah.
But I think that's what I think. Mankind itself has always set itself as high as it possibly can.
Yeah.
And then it slingshots itself out, but then doesn't realize that there's a descent after that. They think it's just a straight shot to the top.
Sure.
Which is good and bad. It has led to many good. I would much rather have the medicine we have today than the 1700s. I would live to the ripe old age of maybe 30 back then.
Right.
Now you can live to be 100.
Sure.
And medical advancements that saved multiple children's lives.
It seems like maybe there's like a peak of good and enjoyment, and then after that, maybe.
I mean, it's possible. If we look at past civilizations, we look at Egypt, we look at Sumer, we look at many civilizations that have had that. They have that apex rise, and then all of a sudden they plateau, and then it just deteriorates. Look at Nero, look at Rome, burned. And now all we have left is ruins.
Yeah, ruins.
Basically. And if you go to the Middle East, you go to Israel, it's even older than that.
Yeah, and what's crazy there is, in the Middle East, you don't even have to knock it down. You just let it sit there long enough, the sand will cover it up.
And sand is a great destroyer of things.
Yeah.
Sand and salt are some of the two greatest destroyers of things. If you've ever
Because it's basically getting sandblasted.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's on a less harsh level than in a sandblaster, but if you do that for a couple millennia, It's gone.
And who knows what's out there?
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows what's been buried underneath
Or who
it?
knows what was? Yeah.
Underneath
Or
it.
who knows what was? Yeah.
And who knows if there was even desert there at the time? They're thinking that
Sure.